I think it's always on always on the line. Google hasn't come knocking on our door yet saying, "Hey, we want to buy you." Anybody else hasn't come knocking on our door yet to want to buy us. But uh, it's that mindset where it's a startup mentality, right? Every day we're fighting to keep the lights on, and so it's that mentality that drives me to keep pushing, to get it out there, to educate people, and just keep promoting sustainability.
For in the back of your mind, your dreams should be real, right?
Thanks all for tuning in to Dreamcatchers, where we make things happen. Dreamcatchers was formally launched to unlock the hidden potential in successful, self-motivated individuals who desire to take their life's work to the next level but need support to evolve. We are a collective group of professionals with various backgrounds that use our talents to assist those individuals in realizing their wildest dreams by providing education, inspiration, and direction. This podcast is where we share the lessons we've learned along the way to catching our dreams and give you some context around the how and the why to each approach to put you further ahead on the journey to catching your dream. Are you ready?
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Dreamcatchers podcast. I'm your host Jerome, and I have Anselmo Torres with me today. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Great, man. Thanks for asking. You're down in Texas, right?
Dallas, Texas is where I'm located, yes.
Nice. So do me a favor before we dive into it. What's the best way for the listeners to get in touch with you?
I would recommend the best way to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. So just look me up, Anselmo Torres the third, and that's where you'll find me.
Awesome. And so let's dive into this thing. I've been excited to do this one since I sent it over. You waited a little bit to schedule, trying to figure it all out. We're getting exclusive again, guys. You know how many exclusives. So
Yeah.
he's got an extremely interesting background, but I don't want to steal the thunder. Let's take it back. Like, how did you get into the space of becoming a dream catcher?
So it was a really cool story, right? I met this guy. He was actually, I moved to Dallas, Texas. I was working for an internet marketing company called jobbing.com. It's an employment advertising website. One of our first hires was a lady. And so I was young at the time. And she said, "Hey, why don't we, a bunch of my friends are going out. You're young. Why don't you come out with us?" And she said her boyfriend was going to come along too. So I was, all right, it'll be fun. I'm in a new city, want to meet some people. That's when I met Ryan Wayner. And at the time, he was operating his business out of like a studio apartment, barely had, I think, 100 units or something like that, his first apartment complex. And so I met him, hit it off right away. About 5 years later, we've been, and we'd always meet up, have a good time, relax, keep in contact. 5 years later, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have probably about 16,000 units now, and I'm trying to find out a way to monitor water consumption. I just had a bill that's typically about 8,000 a month, and now it's 18,000. He says, "I'm not going to do this anymore." So originally he was keeping track of it on an Excel spreadsheet, right? He would just go to the meter every morning and have somebody document what that meter reading is. And then built an Excel spreadsheet that would document high consumption or anything that would catch our attention. So he was telling me about that, and I was like, you know what, let's use technology. Let's create a software where nobody's having to manually type this into an Excel spreadsheet or call us to give us the meter reading. Because as you can imagine, we had properties all over DFW and Texas and Oklahoma. So we started digging in and really creating the software program that helps multifamily property owners monitor their water consumption. I always saw, instead of waiting for the surprise 30 to 45 days later when you get that water bill and, oh my God, where am I going to pay for this? Or what's been going on? Is there a leak? Now it's more, it's not necessarily real time, but it's daily time, right? So every day it's getting inputted so we have an idea of what kind of consumption is taking place on that property.
Wow. Okay. So I feel like you skipped so many steps. So going out with coworkers, you meet a guy, I guess, wherever you are, bar or whatever,
Yeah,
start hanging out, you make fast friends, right?
Absolutely.
All right. And then he reaches out after his property management and personal holdings grow from 1,000 to 16,000 doors and says, I need some help. Why did he call you?
Well, the other thing too is, so he caught me at a good time. So the company that I had been working for when I was working with his girlfriend, which is now his wife at the time, we I stopped working for them. I was kind of at a career crossroads and wanted to kind of take ownership of kind of the direction of my career, right? I wanted to do something that was a little bit more mine. He wasn't even really telling me or pitching me to work with him on the idea. He was telling me about it, right? He was telling me about this problem. And that's when I was like, dude, let's build the software. Why are you doing it that way? And at that point, it was like, okay, well, let's work together on this and let's make it happen. And so that's where I got involved. I was obsessive about it and finding every way to, what's the easy, we had to create a software that was so easy that anybody could use it, that anybody could input the data so that we could get what we need to, provide alerts to any owners, to provide feedback on consumption. So that I just became obsessive about that, and here we are. So it's currently operating on about 180 properties, mostly here in the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex, and then throughout South Texas a little bit, and then in Oklahoma.
Okay. And so did you have a background in software design or like how?
Not at all. Not at all. But I did. So I grew up with, my dad is an engineer, a civil engineer by trade, and he was always preaching efficiency. Turn off the lights. Hey, why is the water running? Turn it off when you're doing this. Everything that he did, it was all about creating efficiency. So it's kind of been ingrained in me. So whenever this opportunity kind of presented itself, it was more of just natural instincts kicked in, where, you know what, hey, I see what we're trying to accomplish here. I see the long-term play in this. I see the value it's going to provide. That was exciting to me. So I was like, let's do this. I didn't have a background in software development or anything like that, but I was willing to learn and get my feet wet and understand things from the ground up. Now, fortunately, we did have some software developers that were located in India that we worked with. So it was my challenge was, hey, let's get the user experience and get the platform to where it needs to be, and then I can communicate any issues or anything that needs to be solved with the team in India.
So was this your first thought of, hey, I need to go out and build my own thing? Or had you had other stuff in the past and you're like, no, I just need to keep my stable job?
No, it's always been in the back of my head. Ever since I was young, I was always trying to hustle something, right? Whether it was, I've got a funny story about blinking lights. So I'm in college, maybe 19, 20 years old. And we bought like 5,000 of those blinking magnetic lights that you could put on your shirt or something, and it just blinks, right? So we're out on New Year's Eve. We're selling these things for like $5, and we started at like $7. Well, by the time 9 o'clock came around, we were almost sold out. People were offering us $20 for these lights that cost us like 50 cents. So we made tons of money, and it paid for everything on that, New Year's Eve trip. So, and I used to host like parties and charge, people fees to come in, or just, money, charge them to come in and have a good time and things. So it's always been something that I've wanted to do. But then again, I got caught up in that maybe corporate world or the safe route, where you get that job. I had a family, I got a house. So it seemed like I had to do things the safe way, and the way kind of that I was taught, right? My parents were, hey, get your education, go find a corporate job and just do your time. So that's where I was at. I was at that crossroad, but it had always been in the back of my mind, like, no, I want to go out on my own and do something and take a risk.
So it's interesting. You said do your time like it's prison. That's
Yeah,
really interesting.
yeah,
Let's you had Ryan, but were
yes.
there other people that showed up along the way to help bring this dream to fruition?
Not really. So it was really Ryan, me, and then one other individual that kind of coordinated all of the software side with the team in India. So we worked hand in hand to make sure that I mentioned that I walked almost 30,000 units over 180 properties. So to really understand kind of what we were trying to accomplish and what was out there on these properties, I had to walk these units. I had to see exactly what was going on so that when I could present the data to an investor or an owner, that I knew what was taking place on their property just by looking at the data. So that experience alone was priceless. The things I saw, the things I endured, the things that you go through to walk through 30,000 units, it teaches you a lot. It's also humbling too. You see a lot of things that, wow, people really do live like this, and I'm pretty fortunate. So it teaches you a lot. You see things firsthand so that whenever you are creating a software, you can kind of see what it's trying to accomplish when you're out there, boots on the ground.
Yeah, a lot of people want to do it from behind the desk. They're not ready to go out in the field, get their hands dirty. But that experience informs all kinds of decisions. So kudos to you for willing to be out there in the trenches and actually touch and feel what's happening.
Well, and the other thing too about our software is we rely on other individuals to input the meter reading so that we can get the data. Well, part of that experience was uh, I had to work with 180 plus different maintenance guys or girls to understand what their challenges were. What's the challenge in inputting this meter reading? What's hard about it? What's easy about it? What would discourage you from just making it part of your habit? So that was another huge experience.
So everything went as planned, right? There wasn't a point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
No, no, it's. I mean, we did that almost 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? So it's been 5+ years in the making. The beauty of it is that with Ryan Wayner and his property management company, we've had kind of our test cases, where we could use it on these properties, test it out, make sure it works. And the challenge has been is there's a lot of property management companies that, even hospitality companies that preach sustainability. I'm sure when you go to hotels, they tell you, hey, use your towel more than once. We're trying to save water. If you really absolutely need it washed, then go ahead and put it on the ground or something, that type of wording. We see all these things about sustainability and the message is there, but some of them don't want to take the action that's necessary for like water conservation or sustainability around water conservation. I think that there's a huge, you have to monitor it. No, and if you don't monitor it, you can't manage it. It's such a huge expense. So that's been a challenge, is getting them to understand, hey, there's value in monitoring your water consumption instead of just waiting for the bill to come every 30, 45 days.
Surprise!
Yeah, surprise. The leak's been happening for 30 days. Yeah. And the thing about water is, not only is it can get expensive right away, right? Just from the consumption standpoint, but it's super destructive. You let a leak go for a while, and then you run into issues of black mold, these leaks that you have to replace drywall. All that stuff adds up. It gets real expensive real quick on any unreported leaks. But that was the other thing that really drove me on multifamily properties and creating the software, helping people understand their water consumption, is unreported leaks. I mentioned that walked through like 30,000 units. It always surprised me when I communicated with the property in advance saying, hey, I'm going to be out on your property to do this. They would always tell me, oh, there's no leaks here. You know, we stay on top of it. We have no work orders for water leaks. Everything is taken care of. Okay, you know, great. Is usually like those famous last words, right? 1 or 2 units in, I'm uncovering a leak. Like, hey, what's this? You know, and oh, I don't know, must have just happened. You know, that same stuff. But what I found is there's so many unreported leaks. A lot of people just, whether it's all bills paid property, or even if it's rubs, some of them don't have the incentive to report that leak, which is upsetting to me.
So it's interesting. Basically, your dad ingrained in you, don't be wasteful. And now you're spreading that across the world and helping save one of the most precious resources out there.
Yeah, you know, because we grew up in Arizona, Wilcox, Arizona specifically, and there's not a lot of water in Arizona. It's a precious commodity. So, you know, we always took care of it. And then, of course, he had that efficiency mindset, being an engineer, and so everything that we did, there was always, how can we be more efficient in this? So, you know, even with my 2 kids now, I find myself doing the same thing that my dad was doing to me. Hey, turn off the water. You know, you really need, you know, turn off the water. You don't need it on right now. Or, you know, do you really need to take a 20-minute shower or 10-minute shower? So it's coming full circle now. Yeah.
He like the old man.
Wow. It's funny. I tell my dad about that. I'm like, hey, you know, all those things that you were telling me, I catch myself doing the same thing now, and I just think about him, and it just makes me laugh.
So you talked about having to spend a lot of time walking and interacting with the folks that would actually be doing the input. Did you have many challenges that you had to overcome on the journey?
Absolutely. The majority of the maintenance guys and girls that we were working with, uh, most of them, English wasn't their first language, or even if they spoke English. So most of them spoke Spanish. The other challenge is that, you know, we do require them to type in a meter reading on their phone. So it was the idea that, you know what, they don't know how to access a website on their phone. Well, I always disagreed with that because a lot of them use their phone to communicate with the world. So with their family back in Mexico or their family wherever they are in the country. So it wasn't so much that they didn't know how, you just had to show them how to input this meter reading once. So it was a lot of, you know, understanding their challenges and anything that they came across. Obviously, when we were going back to build the software, we had already developed it around that issue. And we had a solution for that issue. So it was really cool. We started creating logins and passwords that were available in Spanish or, you know, whatever language that they chose. So they could choose whatever language. Also, we created videos teaching them how to do it, you know, on their phones or how to set it up on their phone, because there is turnover in the maintenance field. All instead of me going out there or me jumping on a phone call to educate them and teach them how to do it, it was, hey, just watch this video. And all they had to do was watch that video, and it was pretty easy to get them set up and running. So that was a big challenge, was, you know, not only the language barriers, but also were they competent enough to put in the data that we were looking for. The other thing too is we had to work with, you know, we have over 180 properties. You'd be surprised how many properties don't, or how many maintenance guys don't know where their meters are, their water meters are, which is kind of scary. So we would always ask them, hey, when the city goes to read the meter readings, where are those meters? Because a lot of times those were different than the ones that they would show us when we'd show up on the property. So that was a fun experience, you know, and just eye-opening that, wow, you guys definitely hopefully there's no serious leaks taking place on this property because I don't know if you know where to turn off the water. But those were just some of the really cool experiences and challenges that we had to deal with. But it was fun.
So, what was your worst fear in the process? Because, I mean, this is a huge undertaking.
Man, the worst fear, I think I'm still going through it, is that sustainability and how do we make it so that people take action and look into something like a leak aware or even a SAS. What's going to cause them to take action? And something I've been thinking about a lot lately is I see everybody talking about, affordable housing. How do we make it more affordable for everybody? I always just naturally, I go back to water and sewer, right? I'm all for investors and owners that want to make a profit and increase rents or do whatever they got to do. They are running a business, so I get it. So my goal is, how do we improve the sustainability of your property through water conservation or just managing or lowering that water expense? And that's where kind of leak aware comes into play, SAS comes into play, where if we can lower that expense or even put in a product that is more sustainable, it's going to help the affordability part for a lot, not only the investor and owner, but also for the residents that live there. So that's what drives me, and the challenge that I'm faced with right now is getting that message out to more and more people to take this seriously or to even consider it.
Was there ever a point when everything was on the line?
I think it's always on the, always on the line. Google hasn't come knocking on our door yet saying, hey, we want to buy you. Anybody else hasn't come knocking on our door yet to want to buy us. But it's that mindset where it's a startup mentality, right? Every day we're fighting to keep the lights on. And so it's that mentality that drives me to keep pushing, to get it out there, to educate people, and just keep promoting sustainability.
Is that the goal? Is that the dream, to have a big exit to a data company?
That's my dream. Yeah, absolutely. I would have to talk to the other guys about it, but that would be my dream, is, to sell it to a larger company that, can take it and run with it. Right. The challenge is the marketing aspect, getting it out to more and more people, somebody like a Google or even, some of the larger water conservation companies out there, could get it out to much more people much quicker. So I think that is the goal. I don't want to be in the leak monitoring or water monitoring space for a long time. I think there's more space, there's more ideas that I can contribute in the sustainability aspect of it. So that's the goal. I think technology in cities are getting there right now. You see more and more cities across the U.S. that are implementing, sensors that collect that data and provide real-time data. So it's getting not as expensive. It's getting easier to use. So I think there's going to come a point where it's almost every meter is going to have it, regardless.
What's up, tribe? It's your host, Jerome. I just want to let you know that we put together a free 15-point checklist for exiting the matrix. Jump on over to dreamshouldbereal.com in order to pick your free copy up. Let's get back to the show. So, up until this point, you haven't gotten to the exit yet, but has there been any rewards for all the stuff you've been doing on this journey?
Oh, absolutely. So I get messages consistently from owners and investors that say, hey, I got this, I got this alert from your system about high water consumption. We notified our team, the team is on it, and they actually found, several leaks or one big leak, or they identified what the source of that high consumption was. Because we were able to get ahead of it, they feel so much more comfortable knowing that when that bill comes in 30, 45 days, that it's going to be more along the lines of what they've budgeted for throughout the year, instead of, oh, now it's over budget. Now I got to find out where I got to move money from to pay for this expense. So I get messages like that all the time. That's the ultimate reward. The other reward too that I've found is the ownership that some of these maintenance guys and girls are taking whenever they input the meter reading and it tells them that the water consumption is high. They could sit back, right, and relax and just carry on with their day. There's a lot that take extreme ownership in it and go identify that source of high consumption before the owner even gets involved, or the property manager gets involved, or anybody else. So they've already said, hey, and owners have told me this. Hey, the maintenance guy I was going to call him and ask him what's going on with the high water consumption. He already told me everything that's going on and has come up with solutions to get that resolved. That alone to me was worth it. We hear stories like that all the time. So it's great to see, that it works for the owners and investors. It saves them money, but also the extreme ownership that they take on the maintenance side of things to, get ahead of it and understand the value in inputting that data into LegalWare.
So now that you've built this, is there a big difference in your approach to life from when you just had a job to being on the backside of a software company?
It's crazy. If one thing that I pay much more attention to toilets, shower heads, and aerators everywhere I go. So I'll be in bars and I'll go use the bathroom, and I pay attention to that stuff now. It drives me crazy. I'm like, man, these guys got inefficient stuff going on. There's probably leaks going on. I'm thinking of their water bill and kind of what it's going to be. So I'm doing that at like bars and hotels, especially. It seems like every hotel, I don't know if it's just the way it works, but every hotel room that I've gone in, the toilet's leaking. So it's like, what's going on here? Am I being punked? Is this real? Is this a real life test right here? What's going on? The ultimate goal too is sustainability, efficiency. As I mentioned, I have 2 young kids. Like I want to make it where life is sustainable for them. It's affordable for them. They gotta have water. I mean, let's make sure that there's enough water for them as well to do what they need to do. And it's not where it becomes this commodity where people are trading it like gold, when they're finally older. So that's kind of what drives me in is that sustainability factor, taking care of one of our most precious resources for them, really.
Wow. I really hope they realize how fortunate they are to have somebody thinking of them in that way, because water and air are 2 of the most precious resources, and I think a lot of us take it for granted.
And the cool thing is, so like I've heard them talk to their friends about what their dad does, and it's it's really funny. But ultimately, just to hear them say, "Oh yeah, he's helping us save water and provide sustainability." Just to hear their young minds explain that to another friend, it's kind of rewarding, and it just kind of shows me that they do pay attention. They do see that what I'm doing is contributing, so it has value to them. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. You better believe they're paying attention. Paying attention to everything you don't want them to pay attention to.
Oh, yeah.
So, Anselmo, what are you most grateful for?
I feel like I've been blessed, not only with great parents, but also the opportunity to pursue an education, also to just see the world, travel the world. So, and then going into 30,000 units, it's a humbling experience to see the way some people live. So it kind of puts things into perspective consistently for me to be thankful for what I do have and not take anything for granted, especially with everything that's going on right now, right? With coronavirus, inequality, just you can't take anything for granted.
Yeah, I think we take a ton for granted, and we get a rude awakening when we take things for granted for too long. They tend to disappear.
Yeah. The coronavirus has kind of put a lot of hold on things, but man, it's been really good for me for the soul, for me specifically, is because it's kind of slowed things down. You have to look at things from a different perspective, and things that we were chasing prior to all that, well, now it's non-existent. But was it really important? So I had to evaluate all these little things that were either taking up my time or I was spending money on, and now it just doesn't have the same value. And I don't know if it'll have the same value moving forward after all this. So that's been pretty neat to experience that.
Getting back to center, that's what I call it.
Yes.
So what are you most focused on catching next?
I do want to get into apartment investing, so we'll have to talk about this. Just because, I've talked to so many different owners and investors, and to see, you don't have to do that 9 to 5 thing. A little bit more freedom, not only financial freedom, but the freedom of time. So I think that's probably the next step, is to get into some type of real estate investing, specifically around multifamily, just because I want to be able to provide something for my kids down the stretch, and they can be a part of it. They can experience it, and who knows if they choose that down the road. But as I get older, I think about the freedom of time a little bit more, and that has more value to me now than it did probably 10 years ago. I'm looking ahead 10 years. I want to be able to travel the country, travel the world, go do what I want to do, but know that income is there to take care of whatever it needs to take care of. So that's kind of what's been shaping my thoughts here lately is, hey, what can I do now that'll allow me that freedom in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years from now?
Wow. Thinking about legacy, man. That's awesome. And so the two questions. First one, what gift are you giving the world?
What gift am I giving the world? Man, that's a great question. So I would say, man, that's a solid question. What gift am I giving the world? Maybe pay attention to sustainability. Maybe looking at it differently, right? There is, to a lot of people, there's a financial aspect to it, but there's also there's a moral aspect to it. There's a sustainability aspect to it, just taking care of water in the long run. So if anything, maybe I'll just have them pay attention a little bit more to the consumption of water and what it means, what it's for. So yeah, maybe pay attention a little bit more about their water use.
And then the final question is, what's the one thing you want people to take away from our conversation today?
That Jerome is the bomb. And that, so we can all do our part to make the world sustainable. I mean, there's little things that we can all do. So really just, taking a look at sustainability differently, take a shorter shower, maybe not turn on the sprinklers. There's all kinds of things, but just think about it like that is, hey, what area can I be more sustainable in? Or what area can I protect water as a resource?
Yeah, man. So, I want to thank you for going off on this mission to help make the world a better place. Like, without you working on this, you think about the 30,000 units that you've walked through, and you guys have the software system too. There could be leaks everywhere, and that water could just be poured down the drain. And you think about places outside of the U.S. where people don't have running water or they don't have clean water.
Absolutely.
That we can be so wasteful about it is just, in some ways, despicable. So
there's even places within our own country, specifically I grew up in Arizona, so there's a lot of Indian tribes up there, a lot of reservations. So there's reservations where like 30 to 40% of their population doesn't have running water. So that's mind-boggling to me that in the U.S. we have a reservation and people that don't have access to running water. So yeah, can't take water for granted.
No, I don't think we can. And I think you beating the drum and saying, hey, don't waste this stuff. It's precious. is something that's probably undervalued. And so I just want to take the time to appreciate you for what you've done so far.
Yeah, thank you. It's exciting, man. It drives me every day. Like I see little steps, but I see progress, and it drives me. I love it.
Man, I appreciate you for being a dream catcher. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you, Jerome. Have a good one.
Too.
Thank you for joining the tribe today. We would love to hear from you. Please don't forget to rate, like, and share. Perhaps someone you know could benefit from what we've discussed. Until the next time, remember that your dreams should be real.